Everybody, Rich Woodmer with the Unbroken platform. Today's a doozy. I've got an unbelievable special interviewee right across the screen to me this way. I think it's going to come. I better point both ways because it's one of these side by side when it jumps onto the screen. But Sarah Taylor was at my recent 2023 Unbroken Natural. And as we say in baseball, she swept the bikini division. And that is swept meaning debut. This excites me. I want to hear all about it. Debut means never, ever, 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 ever have stepped on stage under the lights before. The first time, a first timer. And then what? Then we got novice, Sarah, and all you can do is just nod because you're going to get a chance to really talk and share it. But then novice, and that's never won a class before. And then open, well, geez, open, that's where the big guns come out. That's where you actually get to rewardingly pee in a cup. Pee in a cup because then that means you're getting your pro card. And that's what
Yeah,
Sarah walked away with. So, Sarah Terrell, thank you very much for coming on and talk to moi. I appreciate it tremendously.
yeah, of course.
All right, so let's roll up our sleeves. Bikini competitor, you're only young to the age of you have no gray like me. 24 years old. You're a young girl. Uh, where does it all start from the working standpoint? Tell what people are listening because I want to pick your brain that you swept it. When did it start for you about working out?
Um, Working out has always actually kind of been a thing for me. I was an athlete since I was young. I played soccer for 8 years, played volleyball for five. I tore my Achilles though my senior year of high school and lost my opportunity to go to college. So my life really flipped upside down. The person I was went downhill, and I ended up finding myself pregnant a couple like almost a year later.
Okay.
And then I put on a lot of weight, and
Wow.
I really had lost myself. And but when my son came around, I immediately was like, I gotta fix this.
Holy smokes.
Everything
Can
has
I
to
freeze
change.
you for 1 second?
For
First
sure.
of all, congratulations, the son. I have three, but how old and name?
He's 3 and his name is
Oh
Sebastian.
man, congratulations on that. That's God's gift. I love
Thank
it.
you. Yes, he
But
is.
that is like you just threw me for a loop as far as, breaking down the story because I was sharing before sometimes like this unbroken movement and especially unbroken the channel talking about stories that just with individuals that obviously you see change whether they lost a lot of weight or not but internally there could be struggles but you just
Hmm.
fell off my chair because the light at the end of the tunnel is just an amazing accomplishment but
Yes.
being an athlete understanding I'm assuming a rock star getting scholarships. Was it scholarship in which now? Volleyball or
Yeah, for volleyball.
the
I
volleyball
was yeah, I was playing soccer, and then I found a real love for
for
volleyball, and that
volleyball?
was what I played all through high school. And
Wow.
I was gonna go to college for it, but when I tore my Achilles, that set it.
Devastating.
Yeah, it
Devastating.
was.
So that I mean, en route, I couldn't even imagine that having wrestled and then just continued on, but really devastating to roadblock. So you
Yeah.
found yourself, I guess, the lowest part, trying to get
Yeah.
through.
Yeah. I chose all the wrong paths after all that because it there was no financial side of my family that could help me go to college. So
Right.
I knew right then and there whatever future I had planned was about to go down. And it was just like total gave up on everything right then and there. I barely graduated high school after that. Um, didn't play the rest of my, well, I couldn't play the rest
Right.
of my travel season that year. And I didn't pick up anything afterwards. Like after graduation, I just did everything I could to try to not make it to 21. I
Oh,
was, I had really negative goals for myself. It was a very
dark.
rough mental 2 years, very dark.
Got
Yeah.
really dark. Well, I know, and again, I mean, it saddens me and tugs at my heart, but I know there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But that is
Yes.
devastating for somebody having your life planned out for you. So you were in a very dark, dark place. And I always
Mhm.
say, and this is where we're going to come out of it, at some point in your life, there is a awakening. There's a
Yeah.
defining moment, the defining moment of inspiration. Share that point, your defining moment.
Um, I really feel like my defining moment was when my son was born. I don't want to say when I found out I was
Hmm.
pregnant because that was more terrifying than anything. It definitely wasn't. It was a wake up call for sure that I was like, all right, I do have to start getting my crap together. Like I got to figure something out.
Hmm.
But when he was born, it was like every gear that went dead in my mind was like spinning. I was like, I'm going to figure out how to build a business. I'm going to figure out how to give him the future that I didn't have, how to make him successful. It was all about what I can do for him, but bettering both of our futures. And I've been working, grinding, and just going at it ever since. It was weight loss, it
That
was
is awesome,
business.
man. I mean, it's inspirational, man. So your defining moment was seeing his face. Let's call it for what it is. And
Yeah,
I can,
definitely.
being a father, certainly the connection of a child is just magical. And
It
that's your
is.
constant inspiration. So you had a point for turnaround. So, take us from there. That was so he's two now, you
He's
mentioned?
three.
He's three. He's
Three.
three. So
Mhm.
we're spinning back at around 21. So to get on
Mhm.
your feet and start rolling, you did everything in your power to make that happen, right?
Yes. So my first goal was to get back in shape because I
Hmm.
knew that a young kid is not going to be able to, well, me as a young mom, I'm not going to be at my best if, like, he's not going to be at his best if I'm not at mine.
Hmm.
So I figured that I needed to get in shape so that way I could, one, chase him around and keep up, but also it was more of like, I wanted to make sure that no matter what, I was at my healthiest stage, so he could always have me around. There was no question, no doubt about it. So every bit of alcohol, every bit of everything else that I used to do, it was like no question, no doubt out of my life. Um, and every now and then I'll sip on like wine, but
Right. Right.
nothing like what I used to do. Um, and he I don't know, it's undeniable like the amount of passion and drive that just thinking about him and his future gives me.
Oh,
So,
that's incredible. Incredible strength, man. Kudos. I admire you, and I know others listening will admire that story because that is not what I expected. Not that I expected anything at all, but it's just more of, you know what? And that's what I love about interviewing. you know, I don't want to say we are not average, but when I say I want to say more of I always say average and I explain it this way, touchable. Like we
mm,
all, love the feel good stories if you watch on TV, the athletes, the movie star, but they're untouchable. There's no way to call them up, Instagram them and talk to me. What'd you say about that? It's like
right.
you're touchable, meaning if somebody wanted to reach out to what have you. Like you're that, and that's where I say like real people, touchable, common type of, and it becomes inspirational because it's like, Sarah went through this. I want to do it.
Mhm.
And your defining moment is, I mean, a human being of all and inspiration. So you had the history of being in shape and working out to that. So you got to the point, was it did you change your circle of influences around or the gym to learn more of nutrition? Where the gearing towards maybe, hey, competing come into play? Where'd that come in? Talk to me about that.
So I'm sure you know my other friend, Abby.
Mhm.
So ironically enough, about a year into me working out, I decided why not just become a personal trainer? Like I'm addicted to working out. I'm
Mhm.
addicted to being in the gym. I never want to leave here. So why not just make a career out of it?
Yep.
And I did. And I'd been a trainer for probably 6 months,
Okay.
6 or 7 months. And me and her were in the gym one day and she asked me, she was like, let's just do a show. Let's just do a bodybuilding show. We both look good. We both have had kids. Like,
All
why
right.
not we just see what we could do?
All right. Right on.
And it was a joke for a good while
All
until
right.
I kept track of OCV, I think it was WNBF and
Mhm.
NPC shows that were happening around here. And we
Mhm.
saw that you had dropped one here in Augusta, and I was like, all right, I'm sold. We're doing it. Let's
All
do
right.
it.
Right on. Right on.
And she did not take it nearly as serious as I did at first,
All right.
but I I was so sold on it. I was like, and I went in without a coach. I was like, the only thing I'm gonna do is, see who's doing posing lessons
Right.
because as a trainer, I wanted to see where my strengths were and where my weaknesses were. I wanted to see if
Yep.
I could coach myself through the prep, through the
Yep.
training, through the diet, and I undeniably learned so much.
Right
So
on.
much. And then I also coached Abby at the same time and
Mhm.
it was a lot, but it was also a lot of fun and I'm glad she was there with me because it is a very lonely sport, but also very gratifying.
That's awesome. So how long would you say your actual prep was for trying to
Um,
shift gears on a diet? What would you say?
it was about 9 to 10 weeks.
9 to 10 weeks.
Yeah, I would say about 9 weeks of like a
Hmm.
hardcore prep. For about 2 weeks leading up to it, I was
Right.
like testing the waters,
Right. Right. Yep.
going only fish and
Yeah.
salmon,
Yeah. Just
just
playing
seeing
around with
how
it a little
things
bit.
were.
Understood. Understood.
Yeah,
So you guys, all right, made the commitment together, which is great when you're doing it with somebody. Because you're right,
hmm
from being alone, I get it, but that's awesome. So picking the Unbroken, it's right around the corner from, we'll give a plug to Evans Fitness, which is fantastic. Good, big
yeah.
supporter. Around the corner, the expectations and unfolding of the show. Of course, I'm gonna ask for aimless plugs on transparent. Because a newbie, and I always talk about wanting to cater to newbies because being a competitor, wanting to put on a show through the eyes of a competitor, trying to
Yeah.
make it as easy as possible. What's your thought was as far as it unfolded? Was it user friendly?
Yes, most definitely. If I were to say anything, like I hope every show goes as smoothly and is that informative, like before, after, everything in between, because oh gosh, especially as like I'm now trying to do coaching myself,
Hmm.
so trying to keep things in line for not just myself, but other competitors that I may coach.
Hmm.
It definitely helps to have so much ahead of notice on everything that you gave in the emails, but also the meeting beforehand and everything in between. Like you guys were on top of all of it.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Yeah. And that is the key, especially for a newbie, because it's like, what do I do? What do
Yes.
I do? What is all this? And as far as does all the shows do, unfortunately, no. There's not.
Yeah.
I've competed in my fair share and lots of fair share, and they aren't. So I appreciate the input on it. That's awesome. So now that you stepped on stage, you swept all three, which was great. Pro debut and all. If you look back to give advice to yourself when you and Abby were in the gym saying, I'm going to compete. So now you already went through trial and error, no coach, no nothing, had some guidance, felt comfortable in the show. What kind of advice would you give yourself?
The biggest advice I would probably give myself is don't lose yourself in cutting the carbs. My biggest downside was I cut carbs a little soon on
Hmm.
certain things.
Right.
Um, and I should have been like increasing cardio or, like cutting down on, I was also working 3 jobs. That
Right.
was
Right.
my
Right. Yep.
biggest downfall. So it was like I should have cut out one of the jobs, sacrificed some money to focus on the prep because it was, I had blacked out a few times. It was
Lord.
not pretty, but it,
Yeah.
it was a learning curve, and the carbs are important and there's a lot of different outlooks on it. And I also had to realize that there's not many videos online on natural prep training.
Right.
There's plenty for non-natural, but
Right.
it's very
Right.
hard to find natural prep.
Right.
So,
Right. True. Words of wisdom. So key in on that prep a little bit more. That's
mhm.
great words of wisdom. Okay, so we're speeding up now. Current day, prepping for your first pro debut. You picked, talk to me about show you picked and why, and what is your attitude and how's prep going and all the above. Talk to me about that.
So attitude going in, I think I'm more nervous for this one. I don't know why. I should be more. I was definitely nervous going into the last one, but I'm going for Immortal Muscle. It's my first pro debut,
Hmm.
um, in Beaufort, Georgia, and that's mid-March. I think March 16th.
Hmm.
So I'm really excited, but I also super nervous. I'm more excited to be on prep again. I gave myself a lot of structure being off prep,
Hmm.
but it just didn't feel as structured. I don't know how to put it.
No,
I didn't
it
like the
makes sense.
leniency.
Yeah, it definitely makes
So,
sense. Definitely makes sense.
mm,
That's awesome. So it sounds like you got an outstanding attitude for it. And
oh yeah,
nervousness is my advice and comment is nervousness is good because nervousness keeps you on your toes and makes sure
definitely.
you do everything you can. If you were lax, they always say, if you're lax, then you let the gas up a little bit. You keep that
Hmm.
nervousness, it keeps you thinking, keeps you on your toes, keeps you, hey, should I be working harder? Let me keep
Right.
on toes. So nervousness was always a good thing, but it's great words of wisdom, and I have no doubt that you'll do absolutely fantastic because I'm proud of you. As I think I mentioned earlier, as I see all the competitors, especially the pro winners that go on, as I'm a proud promoter dad type of these are my kids, especially for the first show. So that's absolutely awesome. Well, I greatly appreciate you coming on. So any final words to the individuals listening? Any final
Mm,
words, Sarah?
I think the biggest thing I would say is make sure whenever you go into prep, if you do decide to compete, make sure you go into prep in the most level-minded space possible, because I have no recollection of anything that happened on prep. The brain fog, don't make crazy decisions when you're on prep. Um, Definitely not life-changing ones. But make sure you have good grounding around you, good supporters. And if you're going into it totally solo, then just make sure your mind is clear because there's a lot of battles that you will face going in
That is
and coming
great
out of it.
advice. Great advice. Great advice. When
Oh,
you're
my
fine.
name is Sarah Taylor and I'm unbroken.
Awesome.